This is going to be a follow-up video to the one that I made when I was in Las Vegas shooting black and white film at night. So I'm going to show you exactly how I did that using a compensating development with HC110 and HP5 film. So this is a follow-up video on using HC110 as a compensating developer. I'm using two different solutions. The first solution is going to be much stronger, and then the second dilution is going to be highly diluted. And you do that while developing the same roll. And what that's going to do, it's going to let the shadows and midtones develop up with really good contrast. And then the second solution is going to finish the development by containing the highlights. So what you're going to want to do is, I'm not going to go through the loading the film and all that. I do have another video linked if you want to check that out. Basically shows you how to load 120 film and the basic procedure for developing film. But I'm going to do this just out here and just walk you through all the steps. I'm going to do this quick. I'm going to get straight to the point and show you exactly how I did this using HP5. Exactly how I did it for those Las Vegas pictures. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put one roll of film in a 2-roll tank. And you're going to do that simply because the second solution, I'm only using 5 mils of stock solution in its entirety in that dilution. So I think the minimal amount of developer with HC110 per roll is 3. Once you get the film in the tank, I do this in the dark. So, and I have 2 of these tanks. You don't necessarily need 2 of them, but I start off, I put the reel, the one that's loaded, in the tank in the bottom. Try to make this too noisy. And then, so I'll have this one like that. Now you can either have your developer in a beaker. I have another tank, so I put the developer in here. And the thing is I want to start this development as quickly as possible all at the same time. So what I do is I will have the first solution is 20 milliliters of the concentrate to 800 milliliters of water. So that brings my volume to about 820 milliliters, which is right where I like it in these tanks. Then I'm going to develop that simply, so I'll have that, and that's at 21 degrees Celsius. And so what I'll do is I'll turn the lights off. The first development's in here. I'll mix the second developer is 5 milliliters to 900 milliliters of water. And I mix that up and then I dump about 50 out to just keep it at about 850 total volume. But I'll have that in a beaker that's very easy to pour, that I can pour really quickly. And then, so to start this, I get both these at the right temperatures. I have my stop and fix ready as well, all at 21 degrees Celsius. And then what I do is I turn the lights off. Now I really recommend doing this in the dark. The first development's only 1.5 minutes. I know in the video I said about 2 minutes, but it's 1.5 minutes. So. And what I do is in the dark, I'll open this up, I'll dump these out. Now you could open it up and just dump the developer in, but because I have 2 tanks, this is how I've been doing it. So I dump these out into my hand in the dark. I flip them around, being careful not to touch the film. And then I simply drop these in. It's gonna be noisy, I apologize. I drop these in like this, I close it, and then I start my agitation. And I'm gonna do it with this one because that's really loud. And then I start my agitation and I go 1, and I twist, and 2, and I go nice and slow, just about this pace. And I agitate for the first minute. And I do about 20 inversions in a rotation. So once I hit 20, at 1 minute, I slap it down real good, dislodge the air bubbles, and I let that sit for 30 seconds. I just leave the lights off the whole time for this. About 1 minute and 20 seconds, I'll pull the top off here. And then I put my 2 fingers on the roll. I grab the other, the dilute developer. I dump this, I dump that in, put the cap on, then I start agitating the same exact way, 10 inversions for about 30 seconds. And that's gonna bring my total time after this agitation of 10, the same exact agitation, give it a good tap. That's gonna bring me usually around 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 10 seconds. I try and be as consistent with this as possible, but that's gonna be right in the ballpark. You can get it to, I mean, because there's a little bit of time changing the developers. So now at this point, you have a very dilute developer in here. And also in that last video in Vegas, I said, with this method, you agitate the whole time. By that, I mean you do a normal agitation. You're not doing a semi-stand, you're not doing a stand, you're not just letting it sit for extended periods. And that's gonna promote more even development. And that's why I really think this is a valuable way of doing this, because I found that so far the rolls that I've done this way, it really contains contrast very nicely on the high end and still gives you a lot of really good contrast throughout the negative. Very printable, very beautiful negatives. So from this point, so you're at 2 minutes and roughly 10 seconds. So I'm gonna let it sit for a minute. Now from here, I'm gonna go every minute, I'm gonna give it 4 inversions. So that's what I meant by agitating the entire time. It's a normal agitation schedule. So then I'm just gonna go at each minute, I'm gonna 1, 2, 3, and 4. Give it a good tap, let it sit for a minute and don't touch it. And I chose to do this out here just because in the other video where I showed you, kind of how I develop my negatives in 120 at least, that I typically have the lights off when I'm exchanging, and it's just easier to kind of walk you through it this way. So then at that point, I'm gonna go for a total of 10 minutes. That's from the very start. So it's 1.5 minutes in the stronger developer with 1 minute of agitation, 20 inversions. Let it sit for 30 seconds, dump that, put the dilute developer in, put the cap on, agitate for 30 seconds with 10 inversions, let it sit, then up to the next minute, then a minute, then a minute, up to 10 minutes total. I hope that made sense. So it's 1.5 minutes in the strong developer, 8.5 minutes in the highly diluted developer. And I have found, so all those Vegas shots, I shot HP5 at ISO 160. So I'm still losing a little over a stop of light. That was being a little bit generous. I easily could have got away with shooting at 200 or 250. I just, for sake of making sure that I got those exposed right, it looked like, for me, 160 was about the best. But you're definitely gonna have to do some experimenting with your own, you can use any film for this. I am trying to work out better times for Ilford Delta 3200. But it looked like I could only shoot it at like 400 or 800, but I think I need to go with a stronger starting to develop, like a stronger solution for the starting development. And I got to play around with that a little bit, but I think I can get it worked out. I just wasn't able to in time to shoot those. So my hope is, my goal in the beginning was to be able to shoot Ilford Delta hopefully at around 1250, ISO 1250, which it's right around its nominal speed, I believe. And to be able to shoot like handheld at night with these. Because I've shot in the past, where I've shot like handheld and then I kind of like push development, and that really makes it hard on any lights coming directly into the camera, or any lights that are actually on, neon lights and things like that, tend to really blow out really quickly, and it makes it hard for them to print. So after the 10 minutes, I will flip the lights back off, open this up, dump the developer, pour my stop in, agitate for 30 seconds. Then from there, I'll just I'll leave the lights on, pour the stop bath out, put my fixes in, and rinse, wash, and that is basically the procedure. So some quick thoughts on this. You're definitely gonna wanna kind of work with your film, your speed times. And the one thing I can say is that there are a lot of options to this development method as well. I like starting with the strong developer And what you could do is, like for instance, with that Delta 3200 that I'm trying to work out, I'm gonna try a stronger developer. I could also just leave it in for, instead of 1.5 minutes at the first, I could go like 2 minutes. You know what I mean? So you can kind of play around with that. I could develop it for 2 minutes in there and then go 8 minutes and then more dilute. Or I could go, 30 milliliters in the 800. I could kind of like strengthen that side up and then keep the compensating side about the same to see where that gets me. If your contrast is way too high, I would recommend you could either cut the beginning time down to maybe 1:20, or you could, with the highly dilute developer part, you could just agitate every other minute. Or you could go into like a semi-stand. You could extend it out to maybe 12.5 minutes total, but then only, or 13, 14 minutes, and then for the second part, agitate every 3 minutes and do like a semi-stand. You could even go into full stand in the second. I just get, I get really nervous when I'm developing with stand, because you just never know. I've had good results, but you just never know how even it's gonna come out sometimes. So it always makes me a little nervous. So I feel much more, the one reason I love this, I feel much more confident developing the film this way, as it's a normal agitation. You're getting fresh developer to the film constantly, because that's what creates the compensating effect. Is it's a highly dilute developer, and in areas of the highlights are denser, and so the developer's much more active, and it gets exhausted quicker on the film where there's a lot more activity to happen. And so if it's a highly diluted, that kind of like burns it out in a way, and then you're going to bring fresh developer by agitating. So if you want more compensation, agitate less. But there's a point where you might start running into some problems with unevenness and other things. Some developers are better than others, and all methods have their merit. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. I'm going to link these dilutions and times that I use. Again, this is what I've personally come up with. I did get this from The Art of Photography. It's a excellent book. I highly recommend it, from Bruce Barnbaum. It's an amazing book. I would highly recommend it if you shoot digital, if you shoot film. It's just a really, really good book on photography all around. Plus, it's got a lot of really good technical darkroom stuff in it, like this as well. So I hope I didn't leave anything out on this. Like I said, I wanted to make this short and sweet, go through the process that I use for my film. Then you're gonna just wanna test your film. I'm sure this would work with good with slower speed films. I'm trying to work it out with Delta 3200. As soon as I can nail that, I'll give you guys an update, but it looks like it's gonna work just fine. They were underdeveloped. And so by being underdeveloped, it was a little bit hard to tell if they were underexposed or not. They didn't look underexposed, they looked underdeveloped to me. So I'm gonna have to kind of work and play around with those settings. But anyway, I hope you have good luck with this method if you give it a try. The fact that you're only developing for 1.5 minutes in the beginning, I would be hesitant to pour it through. So, I just pop the top off, either pour it in or drop them in the other one, pop it back on. Works amazing. Got to do it in the dark, but you could easily do this in a bathroom. You could easily do it in many places. You just need a dark spot to do it. So there you go, guys. I hope that helped. I hope. There you go, guys. I hope that helped. I know some of you were asking, how exactly the development in the comments, and I figured versus trying to type it out in a comment, I would just make a quick follow-up video, and that is the process. So till next time, please hit the subscribe, turn the notifications on, and yeah, we'll see you soon.